Morning. We're trying to learn a little bit about optimizing using Solver, but also understanding how to read into something called the sensitivity report, which tells you what things do you need to change in order to get the entire solution sorted, or how much constraints do you need to relax or tighten in order to get things done. So we'll work off two problems. The first one is a hospital service, and assume that a hospital is planning its service strategy. The hospital has several service options based on area demographics and demands: internal medicine, gastrointestinal, cardiovascular, and endocrinology. Each service requires a resource commitment and is priced by market demand. There are set budgets for each resource line item. You cannot go over budget, so you have to stay within budget. So, in this case, all we're saying is internal medicine, for each service offered, it has a personnel cost of, including physicians, nurses, and so forth, of perhaps $500. Facilities overheads, about $300. $100 in terms of medicine, $5 in terms of soft costs and indirects. It's typically billed to the insurance or to the patient for about $1,210, and the profit per service is $305. On the other hand, each gastrointestinal service has a personnel cost of $300, facilities overheads of $350, medicine of $150, $15 for indirects, $10.50 billed, and therefore the profit is very straightforward. All you do is equal to the billing minus the sum of personnel, facilities, medicine, and indirects, and you find that. So you can easily pull that through and you get your numbers. So once we've got the general schedule ready, the next piece is we want to see how many of these services the hospital ought to offer, while making sure that it doesn't violate its budget constraints. And let's put a color to it. Let's suppose these are the budget constraints, right? So these are your constraints. So these are the constraints, and the hospital has to decide on how many of each service it needs to offer to make the most profit. So we basically use the same set out here, except for the fact that now this is nothing but a product. So make sure that this is a calculated column, which basically means it's equal to nothing but this times. So if you offer one internal medicine service, you have $500 in personnel cost times that, so 500. And it's the same story out here. In order to anchor it, what we'll do is we'll say that, well, B11 is remaining the same. So on a Mac, press function F4 to anchor it. And once we've had it anchored, then we can just move that through. So you do the same thing with the rest, but then it gives you a chance to say, all right, let's look at cardiovascular. Right now, one cardiovascular service or procedure every time costs you $400 in personnel. If we were to change it to 2, it should double. And we see it's doubling, so we know that, all right, it's fair and good. So based on that, all we do is we figure out what's the total profit, which is nothing but the sum of the profits of offering one service each, right? Once you've got that, then of course you've got your budget things. Budget allocations per line item or per resource item allocation is $124,000 for personnel, $100,000 for facilities, $52,000 for medicine, and $10,000 for indirects. Right now we're just using, because we're just running one service, we're only using $1,650 for personnel, $1,250 for facilities, $670 for medicine, $35 for indirects, and that's giving us a profit of $1045 from our $4650 billable set. So your unused capacity in this case is nothing but, simply put, the amount allocated in your budget minus the amounts allocated for personnel that you're using right now. And you see the same set, and you can run this through. And if you want to calculate your total unused budget, it's nothing but the sum of all of these. And you see your total unused budget right now is $282,395, which tells you that, all right, we need to know how many services to use. So what we're going to do is we'll go to data, and if you don't have Excel installed on a Windows machine, you need to go to File, Options, and then Add In, and then go to it and check the solver set. If it's on a Mac, the solver should be installed. The Excel add-in, it's an XLA file or an XLM file, which is a macro. It automatically loads every time you run it. And click on solver. And let's clear everything, right? Let's reset everything. So the first question they ask is, what's your objective? And we say, all right, what's our objective? Our objective is to maximize profits. Which one is your total profit cell? It's nothing but H15. So we say, this is what we want to maximize. And then they're saying, what do you want it maximized, minimized, or a certain value? And we say, we want it maximized. Then you could say, what do you need to change in order to maximize it? And we say that, well, we need to know how many services, how many of each service we should be offering in order to maximize the set. So we choose the set B11 to B14. That's what we want to change. And they ask, now, do you have constraints? And we'll say, yes, of course we do. The first constraint, and the very important one, is the very fact that whatever we end up using, right, these are the costs that we have, must be less than or equal to the allocated budget for each of them. Right. Now, of course, I could have done separately. C15 should be less than C17, D15 should be less than D17, E15 should be less than E17, and F15 ought to be less than F17, which is nothing but personnel total costs should be less than the budget, facilities less than the budgeted facilities cost, medicine less than medicine costs, and indirects less than indirect costs. But this is an easier way. We just choose this array and we say that that's less than this array. And the other one we should add is the fact that you can't have negative numbers. So we'll say these ought to be greater than or equal to 0. Now, Excel does allow you to simply check this box that says make unconstrained variables non-negative, but just for redundancy. Here's an interesting thing. It will run simplex linear programming. It's a less resource intensive mechanism, but all you're doing is using a series of simultaneous equations to solve the problem. Now, as we run it, there's another thing we could have added, which is make sure that each service is an integer, which is you can't offer 1.35 services. But the reason we're not adding that is in order to get the sensitivity analysis, which basically tells you which one you can change by how much. It shows you how sensitive each solution is to your choices. Sadly, if you have it as integers, it doesn't give you a sensitivity report. So we'll basically round up ourselves later, but for the time being, let's focus on the sensitivity piece of the puzzle. And we click on solve. And it says it's found a solution. And wonderful. So what we're going to do is we'll say we want the sensitivity report, and we'll click on OK. So as you can see, the solution says that based on what's been given, offer about 80 internal medicine services, 145 gastrointestinal services, 101 cardiovascular services. Because to just round them up, we can just go to format cells. Now, of course, do realize this is not the most accurate way, but for the sensitivity set, we're just working our way through it. So we'll say we're just going to round it up. And once we've done that, it says 80, 145, 101, no endocrinology services. So if we are to look at the sensitivity report, this is what it basically shows us. So it tells us that, well, these are our final values, and which we know, right? About 80 internal medicine, 145 gastrointestinal services, and 101 cardiovascular services, and 0 endocrinology services. Interesting thing is this part called the reduced cost section, and let's see if we can mark it. Let's use this as a marker. So what does that actually mean? So right now all they're saying is the objective coefficients are nothing but your profit. So let's mark that too. So they're saying that, well, right now your objective coefficient is nothing but your profit. Based on the profit, unless the hospital can increase its profits by about $135.58, it's not going to include endocrinology services. So all they're basically saying is, in order for endocrinology services to be included, which means the solution set would be changed and something would be added in endocrinology, you'll have to have this one. So because that's the difference minus that, which is you must make at least $330.58 in profits in order for endocrinology service to be offered. Right now, your profit is only $195. So the hospital is basically telling you, unless you can increase your profits to $331, presumably you won't be able to add any more services. That's an important thing to know. The second piece of the puzzle is something called a shadow price. And the shadow price is actually very interesting. Let's also mark it. Let's mark it with a slightly different color. And right now, all it says is, so let's put a slightly more interesting or a separator. So these are the shadow prices. So remember, these are our 4 constraints. So these are our constraints. So let me see if I can actually add a text box. So you'll see these are the constraints. And so these are our constraints, all of these, right? And all this shows, the shadow price shows, is if you were to change your constraints by $1, how much will your optimal solution change? And what's our optimal solution? It's basically profits, right? So this simply means, let me add another text box. See that? So your shadow price is your optimal profits, right, based on existing constraints. So what it's saying is, right now, total personnel is 124,000, right? Shadow price for that is 0.48 of 48 cents, which basically means if the hospital were to add $1 more to its personnel budget, profits would increase by $1 0.48, right? So you're going to make 48 cents in profits every time you add $1 more to your, which basically means the ROI on personnel budget increases is equal to 48%, right? So if you increase it by $1, your profit increases by 48 cents. Similarly, you could say, you could just copy, let's copy this, and then we've got 3 of them. So copy, and if the hospital, actually didn't copy for some reason, hospital were to add $1 to its facilities budget, and you've guessed it right, profits would increase by, all we need to say is the shadow price by about 6 cents, $0.06, which gives you, which means ROI is 6%. On the other hand, the third one is if the hospital were to add $1 to, this one should be it, let's say, to its medicine budget, profits, sorry, increase by, will increase by, it tells you 44.467, that's 46, or actually 47 cents by $0.47, which is ROI of 47%. And then finally, it tells you that for the indirects, if you add based on the existing constraints, if you add $1 more to the indirects, the shadow price is not going to change. So it's saying don't add more money to your indirects. Add it mainly in terms of medicine budgets and to your personnel budgets. Why? Because the ROIs for each of them is considerably high, right? So that's important to know. So once again, quick check. If we were to add one more text box, in this case, it says, so let's look at reduce costs. So understand what that is. So all that says is if you want the solution to change from offering 80 internal medicine services, 145 gastrointestinal services, 101, I'm basically moving a term or creating integers, forcing integers out of them, then if you want to add an endocrinology service, then you need to increase your endocrinology profits from, so if you need to add endocrinology services to the optimal service set, the hospital needs to increase endocrinology profits from $195, which is its existing profit, right? That's what you see right out there. Endocrinology. Profits from 195 by, or profits by, let's say, profits by $135.57. That is from 195 to $330.58 actually, so it should be 58 in order to run endocrinology services in the hospital for profit, right? So this is all it tells you, and it's very important, and you can use that to make better decisions in terms of what's the best ROI on changing your budgets, how much do you need to change each of them in order to change the entire solution set. So similarly, this is what it means that for internal medicine, as long as you can, internal medicine prices are between 100 or profits are between $165.44 to $387.44, you'll still be offering about 80 services. As long as gastrointestinal services are between $225.43 and $369.45, you'll still offer 145 services. As long as cardiovascular services are between, the profits for them are between $247.06 and $324.89, you'll still offer 101 services. In order for you to change, they have to be higher than that, the profits, or lower than that in order to change the number of services you need to offer. So hopefully that was helpful, and it's a very useful way to make decisions, and all the best.